All right, gentlemen, welcome once again. Welcome once again. Welcome once again. It is here. It is here. It is here. Rugby World Cup is kicked off, and we are ready to kick off our version of the podcast. Welcome back, gentlemen. Welcome, Vuyo. Welcome, Hugh. Welcome, Jade. We're going to kick things off. Maybe we should start with the current game we just watched, and then we can bring it back again from the main game that took place on Friday, and then bring it back all the way up to today, and then make our predictions about our next game, which takes place after this pod, which is the Wales versus Fiji game. Yeah, I'm not going to waste any time. I mean, Hugh, what are your thoughts from the game we just watched, Springboks versus Scotland?
Evening, everybody. I thought it was a joy to watch. After I've been doing this space with you guys for a while now, I feel like I've really been able to appreciate the Springboks a lot more, and been able to get to know the players and kind of notice the details of how they're playing a lot more. And I thought that I loved watching them in that game. The tactics they were using, you can see it's not just the players on the pitch, it's the bench and then the coaches up in the coaches box and how it all flows together.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I publicly backed Libok weeks ago. I'm feeling quite smug about that. But yeah, I thought, I always say about the Springboks, sometimes they can hammer you and you look at the scoreboard and it looks like a close game, or it looks like it's been a tight, low-scoring affair.
Yeah.
But that game was just 100% Springboks domination of Scotland, really. They played it tactically. I thought the defence from the Springboks, the way they were employing that spot blitz, I think it must have been a tactic because they know Scotland are going to go wide.
Mm-hmm.
So they know as soon as the ball gets in Finn's hands or someone else's hands, they're going to do two passes. So as soon as the ball comes out, one member of the Springbok line was always flying out and giving it everything to try and not even make the tackle, but to block the pass or to make the passer hesitate.
Yeah.
And it just worked perfectly. We saw, I think it was Dialende got it wrong once in the first half, which led to the chance that Darcy Graham kept hold of the ball when he should have passed it.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I think, the Boks played it perfectly, and just seeing every player in that team know what they were supposed to be doing and execute it perfectly. And all these things that people don't give the Springboks for, which is the game management, the rugby IQ, the passing was fantastic. So yeah, I was thrilled watching that. That was proper, as nice to watch rugby as I think I've seen anyone play this year.
Yeah, proper test match footy. Vuyo, your thoughts on Springbok Scotland?
Good evening, James. So I think for me, firstly, go with what you said about for me, the performance was good, but I still feel South Africa were very conservative. They didn't want to go into too much in that game. Defensively, obviously, top defense. I think just a couple of things that I picked up in that game. I mean, they kicked a lot of high balls in the first half. They had the territory, but they kicked a lot of high balls. Which goes to show another tactic that was used. And they kicked for post a lot instead of kicking for touch. Yeah. Because I suspect, obviously, they what I would say as a coach, maybe they're thinking a lot more in the lines of, let's just win the game. Let's not overexert ourselves in terms of our forwards. Let's just try and win the game and then get out of here. I think that was probably what one of the tactics was, which is why obviously they kicked a lot, hoping to get that scrambled ball. Scotland, I think Scotland, their lineouts were shocking. I don't know what was going on there. They tried to do a couple of balls over to on the 15 so that they could stop the South Africans competing, but then the hooker was not spot on in terms of his throwing. So that was another miss for them. And then also they played a lot of rugby between the two teams. I don't know. They were not getting momentum, but they were playing a lot of rugby, which is I don't understand how they kept on just playing, instead of putting in a front foot kick and trying to contest, or going up in the air and obviously putting a couple of chases on. But for me, Scotland were very scared of this game. I think they didn't come out and play properly. I think they also between the two tens, they weren't getting any momentum, but they were still trying to go forward, which was terrible. When the Boxers were just playing in the Boxers' hands because the Boxers were just coming off that line and smashing bodies. So, I think looking at the Springbok performance again, for me, for your first game in the tournament, this is perfect. I think you win the game. Yes, it's not a 5-pointer, but you win the game against a number 5 top ranked team. I think it's probably good enough.
Yeah. Fair. All right. And then we've got Enda all the way from Ireland. Enda, your thoughts? We were all just watching the game. I mean, Vuyo talks about how inaccurate the Scottish were. I want to bring in another argument to that particular point and say they're supposed to get direction from their first 5 or from their fly-off. What are your thoughts in terms of Finn Russell dictating play for Scotland in this particular game?
Evening, gents. I think he tried his heart out at times. There are always been question marks around Russell and whether or not he's too much of a maverick. I think he's an excellent player. I think he did try to manage the game well. He did at times, but for me, like we always come back to it, the game was lost up front. So he was always living off scraps. He was always like the Springboks' intensity in defence was crazy at times, and they were just coming off the line so quickly. So he couldn't really do much. But it does, I guess, bring into question maybe that Scotland's tactics, and was it right to throw the ball around as much as they did? But then in contrast, what else could they have done? Tried to match the box up front. We all know how that probably would have ended out. So. Yeah, for me, this was as expected, this game. The biggest question for Scotland for a game was whether they could live with South Africa's physicality, and we found out after 40 minutes, probably after about 45 minutes, that they couldn't. They hung in there for the first 40, especially the scrum at times. Now, it wasn't perfect, but they did absolutely hang in there for the first 40, and then in the second, it just kind of collapsed. The biggest contrast for me was when the Springboks replaced their entire front row and they immediately won a scrum penalty, and then Scotland, I think it might have been the next scrum, changed their front row, and they immediately conceded a scrum penalty. So that's where the game was won or lost. It was up front. It was as expected. I almost at times I admired Scotland and what they were trying to do. And coming back to the question on Finn Russell, I think he did try, but what can you do when you're under that much pressure up front and when the defence is coming up that quickly? But as expected, I think. No,
fair. Okay, fair enough. Jade, we've spoken a lot about Mustard. I think he played the full 80 today. I saw a couple of tweets, obviously, on my timeline, kind of praising him or giving him praise. I mean, we've had our own views, or you have your own views about Mustard, but I don't want to purely focus on Mustard alone, but there's also Mapimpi in this discussion as well, because after today, there's also debate about Mapimpi starting in big games for the Springboks, because now I think Kurtley Arons has kind of put a stamp or put a marker on that position. I think Cheslin Colby has also put a marker in that position. I think the Springboks going forward are quite stable in the wingers, but now the question comes back to Mapimpi and Mustard. First, let's go with Mustard. Your thoughts and overall his game management or performance today, and then let's tap onto the Mapimpi element.
No, afternoon, guys. Evening, guys. Look, we have to give credit to where it's due. Mustard had a good game. He won his line-out balls. He couldn't say actually caused havoc in the Scottish line-out. The Scottish line-out was terrible. They had timing issues, bad decisions. I mean, I'm not a fan of going over the 15, before you sorting out your line out first. They try to get away from the rush. But I mean, he still got his, in front of his jumpers, he got his pot up and he caused havoc. So you have to give him credit to that. He carried well. I mean, he made his tackles. So he had a good performance. He really had a good performance. But if you look at the difference between him and Ergis Snyman, When Erich Snyman came on, it was different gravy. I mean, it's just the only thing that you could blame Erich Snyman for was when Etzebeth went off. Maybe there was a little bit of a timing issue between him and Bud Spencer, Frank Malherbe. Maybe a timing issue there. That's why they gave the 2 penalties away, you know. And I think they sorted it out at halftime. But let's give credit to Mostert. He had a good game, he had a solid game. He did his work, he cleaned his rucks, he carried well. He knocked one ball, but he carried well. And you have to give credit. In terms of Mapimpi, it's difficult, guys. It's difficult. I don't see a spot for him coming into the team. I think Kurtley Arendse took his chance with both arms and both hands. He should be starting with Cheslin, and obviously Philly when he's back. So it's not that I have anything against my pimps. Great servant to South African rugby. Unfortunately, you know, you can look at it in the situation of 2011, Israel Dag replacing Milt Muliaina. You're going with form, and not a legacy, maybe. That's something you can look at. You can look at, you know.
Yeah.
One thing I want to mention of this game today that I really thought Scotland were pathetic under the high ball. They didn't even challenge the box under the high ball when they had the ball. Finn Russell looked very rushed, although he had a rush defense on him. He looked rushed. He never tested the box under the high ball. Scotland's escort game was terrible. They just got into the game 6-3 after halftime. First high ball, they knocked the ball on. The box dominated them there. They dominated them at scrum time. Sia Kolisi marshaled that defense with Damien de Allende and those guys. They marshaled defense. Quick one to the group. If we have to mention it because it's going to be all over Twitter, I bet you it's going to be all over X. If Tom Curry got the red yesterday, is Jesse Creel a lucky man?
There it is. Yes, okay. Before you get there, I think Jesse Creel is very lucky in that situation. I think we saw a similar aspect in the Japan-Chile game as well, where there was head-on-head collision as well. I think at least maybe a yellow in that situation, but Angus Gardner did say that there was no communication coming from the TMO. But it's very strange that people that are watching on their couches with one TV screen in front of them, and the TMO is sitting there with multiple screens and also other assistants, and he doesn't catch any of that footage in that game. But anyway, Vuyo, you wanted to chime in there?
No, look, I just wanted to make one comment. Since Hugh was talking about his back limb, Mane Libok, and I've always said on this space that Mostert needs to go back to lock. Pretty happy he was at lock today because this is the Mostert that we know.
The Lions Mostert.
Absolutely.
Fair enough. Okay. Going back now to Friday, guys. I mean, Friday we had the French game and the Allblacks. I'm going to start off with Enda in Ireland. Enda, your thoughts on that opening match?
Overall, just very, very disappointed with the All Blacks. Did not see this coming. I really thought that hammering that they received from the Springboks, and I know I said it on this space before the start of the World Cup, that could potentially give them the kick up the ass that they needed to put in to pull their socks up and get their performance right. But it didn't work, and they were just the handling errors for me were just they drive me crazy. Now again, we do have to discuss the conditions. There's been a lot of talk about this, but I think it's a valid point. The conditions are tough, but of all teams to see struggling with the conditions, it is surprising to see the All Blacks when we always, with All Blacks have traditionally had excellent skills, especially basic skills. They just don't look cohesive. I do raise the question, and it's way too early to probably be able to answer this, but are we seeing the effect of announcing Foster's replacement before a competition? I did question that. I think it was a silly decision. I'd like to see that made after. Let's see how Foster gets on. Imagine if they went on and won it and then they were like, and they let it go on to let him go. I think that would be a bit crazy. So, but yeah, we're speculating, but for me, that's a valid question now, and let's see how that one plays out. But yeah, we have to talk about the French. Their defense was incredible. Thomas Ramos, his accuracy off the tee was fantastic, and they dealt with the conditions a lot better. But what a way to open up the World Cup. But I think, looking at the draw, like New Zealand would still obviously get through. But from an Irish perspective now, I'd certainly rather be facing the All Blacks than the French.
Very well said. Vuyo, we saw how important Ramos kicked on Friday. And comparing that to today, I know Mani was put under a lot of pressure. Maybe it's first game jitters. How important is the kicking? Looking at Thomas Ramos on Friday, how well he kicked and how far he can kick.
Yeah, I think, look, if you look at the basics of test match, you need a top 85 to 90% goal kick, because most games are won and lost within those kicking and conversions. I think for me, yes, Ramos has got a big boot. He can kick out of hand quite far. His goal kicking is very accurate. It is very important. I think that's what the problem is going to be now for Mani, is that he will have to step up in the next game, because if you notice the try that Kirtley scored today, Faf took that kick and he slotted in the corner. Yeah, I do feel for Mani, because his first kick was a little bit rushed, but his third kick wasn't rushed. He had more time and he got into it, and it wasn't like far off. It wasn't like on the side. I think it was like between the 15 and the first pole. So I think, look, it is tough for him, but he's going to have to start getting those kicks over if he wants to keep his spot. Because as we saw today, when Damien Willemse was moved to 10, obviously the coaches are starting to think in terms of, okay, if this guy is not going to fire, what do we do as coaches? So maybe that is why Damien moved to 10, just to see how he's going to handle the game. But he didn't get any kicks, obviously. But looking at New Zealand on Friday with France, it was one of those games where I think tactically France were spot on in terms of those long kicks. They didn't actually, those long kicks worked out, because New Zealand were trying to keep the ball away from France, but then you almost attacking so many phases in your own half.
Yeah.
And I think that's what killed them a little bit there. And also New Zealand on defense, I don't know if you guys noticed, they never competed on defense. They tried to get numbers on feet so that they could stop the French attack. But then France wasn't attacking. France was just kicking the ball long, and they were just waiting for them to try attack. So tactically, that game for both coaches, I think it was France obviously won the game, but France won the tactical game because they literally didn't worry about any attacking plays. They just wanted to give New Zealand the ball. Let's see what you can do, and New Zealand couldn't do anything on that. Although I'll say this, guys, I know it's we don't want to talk about officials and stuff. There were two instances for me where if you touch the ball, you knock on backwards and then you get a tackle. That's not a late tackle because you did touch the ball. That's number one. And then number two, when you see Finlay Christie diving on the ball and someone diving on top of him and then the ball spills and France goes and scores. So
that's a penalty.
Out of that whole two decisions that Mr. J made, those were costly because that was 10 points. One was I think they ended up getting a penalty and kicked it over, and then another one was a try 7-pointer. Yeah. So it is a little bit tough when you see such small
the moments or margins.
Yeah, moments, but they have so much big effect because this is a test match. Yeah. 10 points test match is massive. So yeah, I felt like it was a little bit for me. It was a little bit tough to see because I don't want to talk about officials, but this happened.
Yeah.
Also, credit to New Zealand with the chip kick from Hardy. They were expecting to carry, and the chip kick worked actually perfectly because they scored from there. A lot of people are saying it was a forward pass, but hey, their hands were going backwards, so let's not talk about that. But so I think, look, Will Jordan. Guys, what happened to Will Jordan in terms of why was he charging at everything, not in balance, He was just charging. And then I kept on asking myself, why is no one stopping this guy? Just tell him, listen, chase the kick, wait for him to land, and then hit him.
Yeah.
He kept on just charging. And especially even after the yellow card, he was charging. But anyway, just a few pointers that I picked up.
Yeah, I think...
Notice the French 8 after he took off his scrum cap. And then he brought it back in because he was feeling the heat. And then he brought it back, he wore the scrum cap again, and then France started doing well. So good.
Yeah, very, very, very valid points there. I mean, I think there was a brain fart from Will Jordan in terms of the aerial kicks because officials, what they're looking for is a fair contest in the air. So if you're in a good position to jump in the air, jump for the ball, and then we'll take whatever happens, or the scraps, whatever happens from there. Either person lands on his feet or either person lands on his back. But if you jump in the air and make it a 50-50 contest, then you've got mitigation to get away with not being penalized. But if you don't jump for the ball and you run straight at a man, because I could a bit of lip reading from Will Jordan in that sense. I mean, he was saying, oh, my eyes are always on the ball. That means nothing if your eyes are always on the ball. That was 2015 law. You know, things have moved on now. I think if he was smart enough, he would understand his collision. I think it was with Ramos. It was almost as similar as Barrett and Kurtley Arons in was it in Bombela, I think, where he copped a red card. But obviously Ramos didn't land on his neck, so he landed on his back. But yeah, I mean, that was a fair yellow card to cop in that situation as well. Hugh, your thoughts on that opening game?
I thought it lived up to the occasion massively. It was a cagey start, and obviously when the All Blacks got the early try, everyone was thinking, whoa, weren't expecting that. We saw the benefit of having the second 10 on the pitch and Bowden Barrett being able to put that kick in.
Yeah.
With France first, I think, as much as we like to be analytical and things, I think in rugby and sport in general, sometimes the occasion and the emotion of the occasion is the deciding factor. They were the home game. It was like that game was as good as the final for France emotionally. It was we cannot lose this. This is what we've been building up to ever since the draw was announced, ever since the game was scheduled. This is what we've been going for.
Yeah. I
think what I kind of was most impressed about with France was that they played their very natural game. These kind of tight, cagey games, that's the top 14 every week. The kicking goals, that's how most top 14 games go. So they were very comfortable playing like that. Obviously, they're playing in their home country as well, which helps. And the crowd was on their side. But yeah, I think you could see, though, that the injuries did have an impact on them, particularly in the midfield with Intermac and Dante not being there. You could see that when there was turnovers and there was transitions from defence into attack, they kind of weren't clicking perfectly. Someone was running a bit further ahead than they thought, or someone's pass was going a bit further back than they expected. And there were a couple of times when there was an opportunity to go, and it's Intermac and Dante with that relationship with Dupont and Fiku on outside them. I think they would have played a lot slicker, whereas at the end of the day, they had to play the percentages a bit more, which again, as I say, is their natural game. But it wasn't France at their peak, which I guess is, Intermac we know isn't coming back, but Dante coming back, I think that's got to be a concern for everybody else, that they're going to get better when Dante comes back in. From a New Zealand point of view, it's strange for me because I had 10 years of that 2008 to 2017 All Blacks team where they would just turn up and beat you. I mean, I'm sorry, Ender, but I remember the game in Dublin where they were something like 3 scores down with 10 minutes to go, and then they scored 2 tries in extra time or something.
Yeah.
And we all said, being a score ahead of the All Blacks is no good because they'll just turn up and beat you because they're just better. But we're now seeing an All Blacks team that is changing its own game to cope with an opposition, which is so alien to me. I'm so used to the All Blacks being themselves and turning up and just playing their natural game and the opposition not being able to live with them. But now we're seeing, with Joe Schmidt's influence, we're seeing a French team playing their natural game and the All Blacks trying to come up with tactics to limit them, and it didn't work. You could see one tactic that the All Blacks were going for is they clearly wanted line-outs. I don't know whether they thought they could target the French line-out or what, but every time that France kicked the ball long. By the way, I saw a tweet earlier today that said Germany is not a kicking 10. You clearly haven't watched Bordeaux, mate. But Germany would kick it long because he loves to kick it long and keep it in field. Whether it was Barrett or Moanga would field the ball and deliberately stay in their 22, even though they had space to run into, and kick it direct to touch. And France were taking quick line-outs off that. It didn't, whatever they were trying to do there didn't work, but Barrett did not deviate from it. Right up until when the game was gone with 2 minutes to go, he was still staying in his 22 and kicking for touch. Now, maybe someone's playing 4D chess, and Joe Smith thinks that these two teams are going to play again in the final, and he doesn't want to give stuff away. But I don't really believe that. But what I will say from the All Blacks perspective, last thing, is that I thought at times Beauden Barrett was playing France on his own. I thought he was the only one from the All Blacks who stepped up and tried to give France a game. And I'm seeing an All Blacks team over the last 18 months that does not like adversity and does not like it when teams give it to them. And if they're not winning after the first 20 minutes, if the other team hasn't rolled over, because we're playing the All Blacks and we always lose to the All Blacks, they're not used to that. They win every week in Super Rugby, and they're used to decades of always winning no matter who they played, and they're not that team anymore. So I think they're having a bit of a crisis on that front.
Oh, fair points there. I mean, Jade, I had a few points that I wanted to ask you. I think Hugh has kind of hit the nail on the head with regards to the All Blacks being a response team, a responding team. I mean, if they fail 1 week, they have to respond the following week and showcase that not all hope is lost, etc., etc. I mean, we saw this last year as well, a few times when the Irish were in New Zealand, when in Rugby Championship against the Springboks in Bombela, then they had to come back, and then Jason Ryan was introduced, and Joe Schmidt was introduced, and then we started seeing a bit of a change within that aspect. And I mean, they even went on with 6, 7, 8, 10 games unbeaten at that stage. But now the tides have turned to some degree. Twickenham happened. They lost by a record score. And then now they lost against France 2 weeks later. Understandably, the opening game in France. And obviously, like you said, I mean, it's the occasion, you're playing at home. It's a must-win game for the home side. Otherwise, it could really just blow up in their face. Your thoughts on the All Blacks in this game on Friday, and then just give a general outlook on what has transpired over time as well.
Guys, let's be honest. When this draw came out, Gautier circled it with a big red pen and said, I'm targeting this fixture. This is when I'm going to show the world that France can win this World Cup. Yes, it wasn't perfect. It was not perfect. France was below par to what I've seen. Not this year, but last year they were much, much better. They weren't perfect, but their tactics were spot on. Like you and Anders said, their tactics were spot on. But for me, you got to learn in situations. And unfortunately, you're sitting with an All Black team with guys like Ethan de Groot, with, Tyler Lomax didn't play, but with Kelton Papali and all of those guys. They're not used to big game situations. Like, for example, Ethan de Groot scrumming against Una Antonio. The first penalty he copped, of losing his feet, he never adjusted his feet. The second penalty, Coach Keeler, when they're leading 8-6, have a penalty on the line. He's got the hit ready. He doesn't sort his feet out. He gives another penalty away. Ramos slots it over. It's 9-8 the other way. A guy like Ethan de Groot hasn't played, championship rugby. He hasn't played in the final. He hasn't played at that level. He's still very inexperienced, whereas Antonio has played in numerous European finals. He knows the dark art. So it's small moments like that in the game. Like Vio also said, refereeing decisions. I mean, I saw that of Aldrit on Christie. I didn't moan about it. There was a big turnaround. I saw the second penalty for Will Jordan and Ramos, where I really think that Valeri changed lanes, and that is why he was late. But it's the game. You're going to get it this week, you might not get it next week. The big problem I have with the All Blacks, guys, where's the game plan? They are still playing a game plan that Shags put in a few years ago, that they want to play a few mistakes. And if you're not going to make mistakes, if you're accurate at the breakdown, if you're not going to give them an inch, they're not going to have anything. Where is the game plan? Where's the game plan they had against the Boks, where they had speeding of they play the game of speed. They force the pillars to move. They force Frans Balherbe, who is pivotal in the Boks defense. I mean, they're causing him to shift and arriving late at pillar. You know, causing the Boks rush defense not to come in. Where's that game plan? Where? They are still playing, hoping you make mistakes, and from there we'll punish you. But the problem is France can scramble. Benu and Valeri can scramble on defense. They might miss a tackle, but they can scramble. How many times do we have to speak of stupid decisions? All Blacks scored try in the first 2 minutes. He received the kickoff. Kelton Papali carries on his own. Penalty turnover, 5-3. All of that momentum gone. In moments like that, where's your leadership group? Who was leading this team on the field? I mean, personally, for you, Irishi Moanga makes that tackle on Panu. You know, Panu doesn't score in the corner there. That's when you get your team together and tell them, guys, they're not winning here. This is our moment. From here, we get out of here, we're playing their off. We're turning this game around based on this moment. You pick those moments, but it was nothing. There was nothing. France got the ball back from there, and eventually they scored. Yeah. And Penu scored again in the corner. There's no leadership in this team. I love Audie Savia. He's one of my favorite players in the world, but he's not the leader that's going to win you the World Cup. I mean, he's same with Sam Kane. Where is the All Blacks leadership group? Look at the Boks today. Had a crap half time. Had a crap first half. Rassie Rasmus most probably gave them a tongue beating like your wife would give you on the Monday morning, you know, after you had a bad weekend out. Rassie Rasmus told them a few things and they reacted. Does Ian Foster have that in him? I don't think so. But I can tell you this. Farrell has it in him, Gautier has it in him, and Rassie has it in him. And those 3 teams are far ahead of the All Blacks at the moment. Yeah. The leadership from the coaching staff, the leadership on the field. The All Blacks do not have that at the moment, and they do not have a plan at the moment. I'm sorry. I don't think there's any 4D chest involved here. I think they just got out.
Are they on holiday in France?
In France, yeah.
Well, the All Blacks might be on holiday, but I know a team that is not on holiday in France. They mean business. They're putting 80 points against opposition. Enda, what are your thoughts on the Irish against Romania?
I have to say again, pretty much as expected, right, in terms of results. I think Andy Farrell set the tone earlier in the week when he named his team and didn't take any risks. It was pretty much a full strength, almost a full strength first team from Ireland. However, not to be too negative, but it is important not to get carried away with this win, and it really does put into perspective. You know, Romania did have a brilliant start, but it's sad to see how far off this level they really are. Yeah. It's not a good look for the competition, and there have been calls for this competition to be increased to 24 teams. And for me, this game kind of reinforced the need for that to maybe be a question for a good few years' time. We're in no position in the world of rugby to expand this tournament. But anyway, look, the performance and scoreline demonstrated for me, like I was asked last week, who's the most important player that Ireland couldn't lose, and for me, it'd be Sexton. I think that performance and that scoreline demonstrated his importance. He sets the tone, he makes breaks, he takes the ball to the line, takes the ball on really flat. And that's why it always seems like he's being hit late, because he just makes the pass at the last minute. He draws his man. And that's why Ireland get over the gain line so many times. But that's why he's always getting smashed. It's hard to watch at times, but it does open up defences. And for me, I honestly don't think Ireland would have scored over 80 points without him. I think that's how important he really is. And again, I brought this up in other pods. He doesn't care who he's playing. He takes the game 100% seriously. He's very competitive, and that for me showed. Overall, as well, from an Irish perspective, no injuries, which is hugely important, especially when they pretty much had their first team out. In terms of standouts, we've already spoken about him, about Sexton, but for me, like Jameson Gibson Park, Probably wasn't that well known, I think, across the world up until this past Six Nations, but he's a fantastic player. He sets the pace. He makes quick taps, runs great supporting lines. He's really he really suits Ireland's style of play with the quick rough ball, and he's always there. He always gets the ball out very quickly, and it's he's just a joy to watch. Porter and Furlong were great, and I think Joe McCarthy, the young Leinster man, missed out on man of the match. He was my man of the match. I think he, again, probably a player that a lot of people don't know of, but he's been brilliant for Leinster. There were some question marks raised when he was named in the Irish squad, but I think we saw yesterday why he was. But again, I suppose we can't get too carried away with Romania as our opposition, no disrespect to them.
Yeah.
But I was really happy as well just to see Ireland be relentless, and they kept going. This could be very important, especially in this group at the end of the pool stages. Though all those points might matter. And again, probably especially after watching the box, really put Scotland under pressure with those up and unders, and Scotland really just have no answer for it. And again, I know we'll get on to it with Argentina, how unbelievably poor they were under the high ball. That is not an issue for Ireland. Ireland's back three yesterday were absolutely rock solid. We'll probably see Hansen come in for Earls in bigger games, and he's got the X factor. He's excellent under the high ball. So I think can't wait for South Africa Ireland, but I don't think Ireland will know what's coming from them, and they're much more prepared. And the game yesterday kind of reinforced that for me. And probably just the last point, is let's just not read too much into this. It was Romania. Unfortunately, they're not up to this level.
Yeah.
But Ireland will certainly take it. They took the game seriously. But I think Tonga will be a lot more challenging next week.
No, fair enough. But still sticking with you, and I mean, like I was going to ask him, you also mentioned it within your within the conversation as well. But looking at Ireland, their patterns, their structures, and then after, in the past 30 minutes, we watched the Springboks. But looking at the Springboks patterns and structures, I mean, when you look at both teams, who do you still think would be able to top that Group B? Is it Group B, Group A? Group B, Group B.
Group B, yeah. For me, I still think Ireland can do it after seeing South Africa today, because Scotland, as I said on a previous one, they can beat anybody on their day, but they don't have the physicality up front.
Yeah.
Ireland do. Ireland can match them. Ireland have beaten the box. Ireland have a scrum. They have a line out. They have one of the best 10s in the world. We have the X factor. We have a back three who can catch the ball, who can counterattack, who have strong kicking games.
Yeah.
And we have an excellent coach in Andy Farrell. So again, I think Ireland still can top that group. It's probably a bold statement. I'll probably eat my words in a couple of weeks when we take on the box. But I just think, in terms of our patterns, like Scotland, it was admirable, as I said earlier, like at times when they just tried their very best to run around the box and to really tire them out. But I think Ireland can do that, but also Ireland can play Ireland do kick the ball quite a lot as well. So we just have more variety to our game. And again, we have those players. Like when you look at your Andrew Porters, your Furlongs up front, we just have the pack to take on the box, I think. Now maybe perhaps not the bench, but I think Ireland will top it. But again, and it's a good point that Jade raised on a previous pod as well. The injury to Cian Healy, that could really impact Ireland and us topping the pool if we see an injury to Porter.
No, fair enough. Hugh, do you also want to jump in on the Ireland-Romania game? Because I want to ask you about England, your favourite team. And then Jade after.
All I want to say is just echo the statement that Enda made, that I don't like seeing teams taking 80 points at the World Cup. Unfortunately, we all saw it coming based on where Romania are, sadly. Of course, we all had the thrill of them scoring in the first minute, and we were all tweeting #StopTheCount. But it upset me a little bit, that game, just because I don't like seeing that kind of scoreline.
No, fair enough. Jade?
Listen, guys, that first Romania scored, that is their moment of the World Cup, going ahead against the number one team in the world. You can't take it away from them. Unfortunately, the game ended like that. But Enda, Is Bandi Aki starting 12 now? Do you think he's in the team because he can bash? He can go against, the rush defense of the box. He has that ability to bash. Do you think it's him and Ringrose, the starting pair 12, or do you still think Henshaw will come in? And the other thing that I wanted to add on Ender is that the one thing I like of Ireland is you must remember that Munsters beat the Stormers in the final, in the URC final. So psychologically they know that they can handle some of that box physicality.
Yeah.
They have a good line-out as well. They've got Dennis Bird, O'Malley, Doris, Ryan. They've got very good line-out jumpers, so their line-out won't, just disappear like Scotland's did today. And the main thing I want to know is Bandi Aki the starting 12? Because I think maybe that's Farrell's eye against the box and against the French, just to have a bulldozing 12 to counter that rush.
Unfortunately, Munster's best players are playing for the box, and Ireland have brought Leinster onto it.
Always controversial, Hugh. I think for me, and I am from Connacht, and so I do watch Aki a lot. He is the starter for me, again, because he does bring that physicality, but he also has an excellent offloading game. He has an excellent passing game. You don't see him kick that often, probably because he doesn't have to, because he can just take from the ball and he usually makes yards. But yeah, I think he's probably the starter. It's a very, very good situation for Ireland to be in. He does start for me, but I think Ireland definitely has strength and depth there. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I think especially after that performance, even bearing the opposition in mind, I think he will start. He's just an absolute baller, and he brings that passion as well to the jersey when he plays, and I love to see that as well. Like when he makes a hit, he makes it count, and he gets up and he tries to make a turnout. Like he's an all-rounder. He really is. Like when he came to Connacht, he completely bought into the area, bought into the whole mission of Connacht, and Connacht are the most under-resourced team in Ireland, and he doesn't care when he plays for Connacht. He plays with his heart in his sleeve, and for me, he plays like that for Ireland as well. And I think that's important, especially in these massive competitions. So yeah, he definitely, I think, will start.
Will.
Yeah, and like I said, he looks fit. Like I want to say, he looks fit. It looks like last year he looked a little bit overweight, but this season he looks fit. It looks like he worked hard in pre-season, and that's why I just thought that he's can be the trump card in that backline. But thanks, Ender, for that.
Thanks, Ender. Vuyo?
And it's good to know that you're from Galway, bro. So one of those days I'll come up here and we can bow up like I've done in the past. Just wanted to mention one thing in this game. It was a captain's run with an opposition. That's all it was. But for me, very impressed with that last 8 minutes when Ireland started throwing the ball around and they didn't kick it out for touch when they could have ended the game. I think those are the kind of things that you need when you're chasing a game and you just need a little bit of confidence, a little bit of a training game to actually test out that you could try for. That's what I was very impressed with that. You look, but they actually went on and pushed on, which was a brilliant performance.
No, very good indeed by the Irish team. Hugh, your country or the country that you've adopted in the past couple of years, England played against Argentina. Everyone, I mean, when I say everyone, I'm talking even my mother gave me a call from South Africa and said, hey, Argentina might just pull one over England this weekend. But none of that happened. Zero. Out of the blue, England, George Ford kicked like Yanni de Beer playing for the Springboks in 1999. Hey? But still, England copped another what? Red card. But your thoughts on the England-Argentina game?
Well, where do we begin? I think we have to credit George Ford. I've said on this pod before that I don't think he's the answer, but I have to give him credit in this game. I think he stood up and he said to the team, look, guys, forget everything that you know. Just give me the ball.
Yeah.
And I'm out of it. There was no way that was the plan. It was just George Ford coming up with it on the spot to deal with it. I mean, I was wondering to myself, do England scenario train with only 14 men in training? Or do they need to scenario train with 15 players on the pitch in case that happens by accident at some point?
If they had 15 players on the pitch, they wouldn't know what to, they barely know what to do with the ball now with 14 players.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I have to credit George Ford, have to credit the energy they had in defence, and being disciplined in that aspect. My goodness me, Argentina were dreadful. I mean, when Carreras got yellow carded, and obviously their 10 was gone, so they kind of lost all shape and everything, and you think, okay, but their 10 is off the pitch, that was always going to happen. But then he came back on, and he didn't get any better. They just had no clue what they were trying to do. They had no shape. They had no plan. You could see by the end of it, at the end of the game, players were just playing for themselves. They weren't linking up. They got into, I think in the 70th minute, where they still needed 3 scores. They got into a kick tennis thing, and I'm like, guys, this isn't what you need to do right now. It was truly bizarre. It was a very tough game to watch. It felt like it lasted 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like I say, you got to, I suppose, credit England for being the less bad team. I can't quite get my head around what Argentina thought they were trying to do. I assume that Czechia has smashed every teacup in the south of France. But yeah, it's just
bizarre.
There's not much to analyse because England didn't really do anything. I mean, I'm a bit gutted that Scotland didn't score against South Africa because now it means there are 2 teams who haven't scored a try this weekend.
True.
Yeah. Are England's problems solved? No. But yeah, they're probably going to top the group now. So I guess whatever works for them.
Yeah, fair enough. Whatever works for them, which is my next point. Jade, I don't know if you watched the Premier League, the Gallagher Premier League final last year. I think it was the Tigers. Forget who their opposition was. And George Ford was the number 10 in that game. Probably the worst final I've seen during that weekend, because I think there was a Super Rugby final in the morning, then there was a URC final, and then later on there was the Gallagher Premier League or Top 14 final, one of the two. Then there was the Gallagher League final after that. And the way the Leicester Tigers played in that final resembled everything that England did on against Argentina yesterday. There was no shape. There was no ascendancy. There was no attack platform. There was no, what can I call it? I mean, there was literally nothing in that game, man. Like, it was a poor display of rugby was actually that game. Out of everything that took place this weekend, that's probably the poorest game we've seen all weekend. And both teams are in the top 10, by the way. I mean, Japan, Chile was much better and more exciting than that. But Bothwick, his coaching style is quite simple, right? Let's try and get into good position to earn a penalty, or in this case, get a drop goal, and we'll just kick the ball over and see how much we can get off that, basically. What are your thoughts with regards to the Bothwick tactics at Lens, at Leicester, and even coaching this English side?
You know, I'm not going to go too much on the Leinster Tigers issue. I remember that weekend, there were so many finals, and that game actually depressed me that I turned off the game at halftime and watched the last 10 minutes again. But let's say this, guys. I've got this team of England, and I've got this feeling they are going to make a semi-final of the World Cup through the back door, and everything is just going to be fine. You know, they made a semi-final of the World Cup. Let's forget all of the problems. They'll look at it as being, yeah, we dealt with all the diversity, the Owen Farrell situation and all of the red cards and the Eddie Jones sacking, and at least we made a semi-final, so all is well. So we'll just plaster over the cracks and, rinse and repeat a few years later. That's gonna happen with England. They're gonna crawl into a semi-final in this World Cup by playing crap rugby. Yesterday it was, I think, three guys won that game for them yesterday. Laws, Tuolangi, and Ford won that game for them yesterday. And also Argentina was terrible yesterday. I don't know how Argentina takes so long to get the ball wide. It's just like, it's an effort for them to get that ball wide. They set up 1-2 and then they pick up and go and they try a switch and then they hit again in the midfield. Instead of just spreading the ball wide, going out wide, moving, shifting them, tiring them out. They're playing with 14 men.
Yeah.
And if there's one team that's used to playing with 14 men over the past month, it's England. So they have experience in that. Maybe they counted. They played well for the World Cup, But let's give credit to Ford. He handled the situation well. He got the points on the board. I mean, at the end of the day, you wouldn't notice that there was a red card in that game because of the scoreline. Let's give credit to them. With a performance like that, if I'm Samoa and I'm looking at Argentina and thinking, if you're going to play like this against me, I fancy my chances against you.
Yeah.
I see nothing special in you. But yeah, I was disappointed in Argentina. When they had to just execute, they turned the game into being a scrappy game. They had no discipline. They had no leadership on that field. They should have just tired England out, kept the ball in hand, go wide. They have quality wingers. They have a quality back three. They allowed England back into the game. They allowed Courtney Laws to get cheap turnovers at lineouts and at ruck time, Ford to get into 22 and get points. I wouldn't even say England were lucky to win yesterday because, let's be honest, I mean, I want to point on that red card yesterday. I do feel for Tom Curry. Rules are rules, but guys, come on. If we can look at that being red cards, then the game's in trouble, guys. Seriously, because I don't think that warranted a red card. I honestly think yellow, and because there wasn't really intent into it. But yeah, the less I want to see of Pool D, the better. I think Pool D is gonna kill my vibe in this World Cup.
Enda, your thoughts on the Argentina-England?
In a strange way, this game, it reinforced my belief that England will not win the World Cup, even though they played really well and have made a really good start to the World Cup. But as Hugh said, and this is the key for me, the perspective of Argentina were absolutely terrible, and England executed the most basic tactical game plan extremely well. I don't know what Cheika and his colleagues were doing in preparation for this match. Did they not see the kicks coming?
Yeah.
It was crazy how poorly Argentina dealt with the aerial bombs. Obviously, we can chat about the conditions and whatnot, but I just thought, some that was inexcusable for me not being able to deal with this game plan. But again, I suppose you have to admire England for sticking, like we've been talking about in the lead up to this World Cup, that they were just going to stick to their tactic, weren't they? And those tactics paid off yesterday. And personally, I can't stand the tactics, but yeah, you just have to admire. Also, just reinforced how incredibly just devoid of ideas they are. Like you could see it sometimes as well when they weren't going to kick the ball. That if a player passed it, it was just he almost didn't know what to do. It was like a deer in the headlights at times for me when a player it didn't seem like it was sticking to the plan, and you could just tell that the player didn't know what to do and just took the ball in and almost immediately just went to ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, England, they're not going to go. They're not going to win the World Cup. It's such a boring game plan, but it was executed really well. They're still in massive trouble for me. Compare, obviously South Africa's tactics were similar today, but South Africa obviously had so much more variety to it, and it's so much more enjoyable to watch South Africa playing. It's not enjoyable, is it, watching these English games?
It's not enjoyable watching the minnows. Hugh, you want to jump in?
Sorry, I took myself on mute. Yeah, just quickly, what Enda alluded to there with the Checker preparation, it was funny because on on the broadcast, they asked Checker in an interview, so Michael, how's your preparation been? And he kind of went, yeah, well, it's not been ideal. There's been ups and downs, but I think, overall I can be pretty satisfied. And I think, we'll give it a good go today. It's not been amazing. And it's like, is he gone? Is he done already? Has something happened? Has he lost the dressing room or something?
Yeah.
Because the vibe of his interview, it wasn't, you compare it to what Gatland has been saying in his press conferences, which is, this team is doing all the right things, etc., etc. Checker was kind of like, well, we're okay, I suppose. So I don't know. We know he falls out with teams, so I guess maybe that's happening already.
Ooh. Oh, only time.
I have something on that. I have something on that interview, actually. He's a little bit grumpy for his warm-up games because he had a warm-up game against, I think Namibia, or the second thing is played against Namibia, and then there's Chile and Spain. And he was grumpy that they couldn't get him a top-tier warm-up game. He felt that his preparations wasn't where it should be.
It could be, but only time will tell, I guess. Vuyo, did you also watch the England and Argentina?
Yeah, I did. But unfortunately,
load shedding.
I've got nothing to say about it. I've got nothing to say about that game. It was just terrible. For me, it was more like a George Ford sticking it up to Eddie Jones being in the same country as him. That was basically it I got from that game. But I wasn't impressed at all with England, and I think England at this point are not going to win any World Cup playing like that. Poor performance from Argentina. I think for me, they tried, they were not getting. It's almost like they were not. They became softer. If I can say that, they didn't show us that New Zealand, the game they won against New Zealand, like how they were robust and running hard. They were just different. So I don't know. Maybe what Jade said. Maybe the fact that they didn't get a tier 1 nation to play against in the warm-ups. Maybe that took effect. I don't necessarily believe in something that we say you've lost changing rooms. I don't think that. I think with coaches, for me, with coaches and players, there's always ups and downs, and you always look at your leadership group where they are. And I think when your leadership group is not stepping up, then you tend to be hard on them, and then they tend to have lip walking around, and then that puts in a negative connotation to the rest of the team. So, yeah, I didn't feel like they had leaders on that field. I mean, yeah, you saw Creevy on the bench a couple of times pulling funny faces. You're like, yeah, there's just something that went wrong. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
Cool. Sticking with you, Vuyo, as we wrap up, your thoughts in terms of where to now for the Springboks? Continue in this momentum into the group, keep the same team, change the team, give other players a chance. Your thoughts?
No, I think Boks can change. Boks can make a couple of changes. I think maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea for the Boks to play Damon Willems at 10 in one of the games. I think it wouldn't be a bad option as well. Obviously, looking at our back three, I think we're pretty settled there. As JB said in the beginning, I think mustard jersey. I don't think he's going to get it. Definitely would want to see a Siya Kolisi and Eskom Van Staden starting, because I think if we can have that option as well, I think it will give us a better even beef up on our bench, especially if we'd have to lose Peter Steph to Troy, because no one has actually stepped up past Peter Steph to Troy, that number 7 jersey. I don't think anyone has. So giving those two the option to play in that position together, Sia and Eskom, obviously putting Dwayne at 8, that you can have two good fetches and Sia working hard on the breakdowns. I think that would be good. I mean, yeah. I know we're running out of time, guys, but I just wanted to comment on, can we comment on Australia?
No. Leave Eddie Jones and the Georgians.
No, I just wanted to make one comment.
No. We're running out of time. We need thoughts, and then we go watch Wales and Fiji.
All right, cool. Cheers, guys. Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
That's me.
Cool. Enda, your thoughts with Ireland? Stick with the same team to continue to get continuity in the group going against Tonga?
No, for me, I think they need to make changes. I don't want to see Sexton play against Tonga. It's too risky. We know we can beat them with pretty much not I wouldn't say a second string side, but just with a strong pack maybe, but a couple of replacements in the back. So I wouldn't want to see Ireland go out with a first team just in case, because we've got bigger games. Like we've got the Springboks. I think the week after, and then Scotland 2 weeks after that. So I think changes are needed just to rotate the squad.
Okay, fair enough. Jade, the All Blacks, what do they need to do?
Get Ethan Blackadder as soon as possible into this team and a part of that 22, 23.
Yeah, but he's there.
Something
He's on
else you need to get him into. You need to this week. You need to give him a start. You need to get some confidence back into this team. You need to get you need to get confidence into this team. That's what you're gonna have to do. And the other thing that you're gonna have to sort out, maybe give Richie another run at 10 so that he can just get that flow in the game flowing again. And maybe Lester Fine and do good to start. But for me, I think the key for New Zealand is at the moment, while Fritzell's out, you need to get Ethan Blackadder into this team so that he can, get up to speed with international rugby, because he's crucial when it comes to the quarterfinals and at Italy game.
Fair enough. Hugh, who do you have? Wales, Fiji, who wins?
I'm always going to back my team, so I'll always back Wales. I'm looking forward to finding out how we're going to play, because I've got no idea.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing if this starting 15 is any good, because I've got no idea. I think if Fiji win, I can't be that sad, because I've developed a real love of Fiji over the last few weeks. I think, I support teams that often lose, so I can cope with that. The meltdown on Welsh Rugby Twitter if we do lose is something I am not looking forward to, so you won't be seeing me for a good week and a half.
All right, fair enough, guys. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Live recording. Now we can look forward to watching Wales versus Fiji. Thanks, gentlemen, once again. See you guys next week.
Thanks, gents. Have a good one.
Cheers, guys. Cheers.